Welcome to today's Explainer. Okay, we are diving straight into an absolute monster of a geological event. On November 23rd, right in the heart of Ethiopia, the Hayli Gubbi volcano erupted. But here's the thing, this wasn't just your standard volcanic activity. This specific volcano had been sitting there in total utter silence for 12,000 years. And then, for the very first time in recorded human history, it woke up. And man, it woke up with absolute fury. 50,000 feet. Let that number just sink in for a second. That is how high the ash cloud from this eruption shot into the atmosphere. The sheer, terrifying scale of this is honestly hard to wrap your head around. We're not talking about a local dust-up here. This explosive plume was so incredibly massive, it was literally visible from space right away. And the raw power of the explosion? Unbelievable. People on the ground said it sounded exactly like a bomb blast. The visceral intensity was just mind-boggling. I mean, folks heard this deafening roar from up to 190 kilometers away. The shockwaves were so violent that over in the neighboring country of Djibouti, they actually felt the earthquake beneath their feet. Section 1. Chaos in the skies and global flight issues. So this towering ash cloud obviously didn't just stay put over Ethiopia. It caught those high-altitude winds and kicked off a massive intercontinental journey. It drifted across Oman, swept over Yemen, and eventually hit Pakistan and India. Widespread flight cancellations completely paralyzed air traffic in Delhi and across the Middle East. And the cloud just kept up its slow, menacing march toward China and Myanmar. Now, the reason for all these grounded flights is honestly terrifying. You see, volcanic ash isn't like soft campfire smoke. It's packed with jagged bits of rock, glass particles, and hard crystals. If an aircraft engine ingests that debris, well, it can completely shut down in midair. No way you want to risk that. And then there's the sandpaper effect. These glass particles act like microscopic razor blades. Flying through that at high speed, it literally sands down the cockpit glass until it's totally opaque, and the pilots are left flying completely blind. Section 2. The world's hottest place, the Danakil Depression. Okay, so the origin point of all this madness sits in the Afdera region of Ethiopia, which is a place of just wild geological extremes. Up above, you've got this massive 50,000-foot high-altitude ash cloud, freezing cold, sprawling across continents. But down on the ground, you have the Danakil Depression. It sits entirely below sea level, baking in temperatures that routinely hit 50 to 55 degrees Celsius. It gets virtually zero rain, and the terrain is this alien yellowish-bluish landscape forged by intense chemical reactions. It's like another planet. But, as incredibly harsh as that sounds, that extreme environment is actually the good news here. Because it is so utterly inhospitable, no one lives near the volcano. So thankfully, absolutely no human lives were lost in this terrifying explosion. But that brings us to the million-dollar question, right? Why? Why did a volcano that had been perfectly, peacefully dormant for 12,000 years suddenly decide to erupt right now? What on earth is happening beneath the surface to trigger such a massive awakening? Section 3. Africa is splitting in two. And here is the massive twist of today's explainer. This eruption, it's not just some random, isolated event. It's actually a direct, violent symptom of something far bigger. The African continent is actively tearing itself apart, literally. This is driven by tectonic shift, which is the subterranean movement of the Earth's massive plates pulling away from each other. Right beneath the Hayli Gubbi volcano, three huge tectonic plates meet: the Nubian, the Somali, and the Arabian plates. And right now, these three massive slabs of the Earth's crust are physically shifting and pulling away from one another. That movement creates deep rifts in the ground and triggers all this violent volcanic activity up on the surface. Section 4. The East African Rift, a 6,000-kilometer line. This local rift in Ethiopia, called the Afar Rift, is really just one small piece of a colossal puzzle. Geologists track this continuous fault line stretching a massive 6,000 kilometers. It runs all the way from the Red Sea, down through Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, Malawi, and straight into Mozambique. To really grasp this, we have to rewind. Millions of years ago, the supercontinent Pangaea broke apart. Then, in ancient history, the Arabian and African plates split, which is actually what created the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. And now, today, in the present, we're watching the African plate itself actively split right down the middle, dividing into the Nubian plate and the Somali plate. And you know what's wild? This exact same continental drifting process has already created some of Africa's most iconic geological landmarks over millions of years. This rifting gave us towering peaks like Mount Kilimanjaro, Mount Kenya, and the Ale volcano. At the same time, the massive depressions created by the plates pulling apart literally filled with water, giving us incredible bodies like Lake Malawi, Lake Tanganyika, Lake Albert, and Lake Kivu. So none of what's happening today is unexpected. It's just a continuous part of this massive geological engine. Moving on to dividing in real time. Geology in action. Let's bring this vast, mind-bending geological timescale back to a human perspective for a second. We are quite literally watching a continent divide in real time. Now, scientists estimate that a complete continental break, like where an ocean literally flows between the two halves of Africa, will take anywhere from 5 to 10 million years. Why so long? Well, because these massive continental plates are separating at a rate of just 2 to 5 centimeters per year. To put that into perspective for you, that is exactly the same speed at which your singer males grow. But wait, 60. Keep the number 60 in mind, because you really shouldn't let that incredibly slow speed fool you into thinking the whole process is just peaceful and steady. While the overall drift is, fingernail paced, the local geographic changes can be violently sudden. Back in 2005, in this exact same Ethiopian region, a terrifyingly massive 60-kilometer-long fissure suddenly ripped open in the ground, and it did this in just 10 days. Just imagine that scale of destruction forming in just over a week. And we're seeing this continuous sudden activity today, like the recent eruption of the nearby Ale volcano in July 2025, right on the heels of white smoke rising from Hayli Gubbi. It proves that while the overarching timeline is millions of years long, the violent geographical shifts to pave the way, they can happen almost overnight. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Millions of years from now, when the ocean finally floods into this massive 6,000-kilometer rift permanently dividing the land, what is the map of our world going to look like? It's a staggering reminder that the earth beneath our feet is never truly still. It's just in a state of continuous, majestic, and unstoppable transformation.